On this episode of Old School Monster Life, we dig into a Holley carburetor and make it run. Getting ready to build a carburetor, and this is a list number 4777, and you Holley guys will recognize the number. It's a very, I won't say rare, but you don't see them very often, and it's a specific carburetor for a certain kind of engine. And what it is it's an actual 650 dual feed double pumper Holley. These carburetors work great on bigger small blocks with a lot of head flow, like they have big runners in the heads and intake manifold. Something where you need a lot of gas and air right off of idle, because when you dump the throttle on a dual feed double pumper, it dumps a lot of gas all at once, and you have to have a specific kind of engine to make that work. Well, apparently this guy named Mike had this carburetor, and he loaned it to a guy, and he thinks it wound up on his race car. His race car runs alcohol, so he must have been fiddling with the jets. But here's where I say, if you don't know what you're doing, you can wind up causing yourself a lot of headaches. And it's not just enough to know what you're doing, you have to learn from your mistakes. Because this guy made some doozies. And this is what I'm talking about. So on this hard to find carburetor that's pretty desirable, this is what I found. Now Mike got the carburetor back and he said, oh, I can never get it to run right. Well, the first thing I noticed was this. Here is the carburetor. Immediately, it looks like somebody's been grinding on it with a grinding stone. Here and here. And I thought, who would do such a thing? And then I started looking at it. Can you see that scar there? And there. This one's a little bit more obvious. Yeah, so what happened was Mr. Neanderthal with the race car threw this down on his carburetor and then must have used a 1/2 inch impact to tighten it down. Now, just so everybody knows, a carburetor is a very delicate, very precise piece of equipment. Finesse, not force. You can tighten a carburetor down to the proper torque with a 1/4 inch drive ratchet. You really just want to go just past snug with this thing. You don't honk down on it until you bend or break the base plate and then wonder why Holleys are junk. Yeah, no, you're just an idiot. So I have gained the reputation for being the Holley guy, I guess. And I am able to build and tune carburetors where not many other people can. So given what this was on, I asked him approximate cam profile, cubic inches, what kind of intake he had, what kind of exhaust he was running. And from all that, I can kind of get a baseline tune in the carburetor to where it'll at least start and run. But now this base plate, I don't know what to do with it because I don't know if I can fix it. I'm sure the bottom of it's warped. I haven't put a straight edge on it yet. I just sat down at the bench. But this creates such a problem, it'll be a challenge to get it working right. So we're going to have to figure out what to do with this. I do have another base plate, but boy is it rough. It's at least in one piece. So I will have to take this all apart and see if I can do anything with it. And if I can't, then I will be tasked to find a new base plate for this carburetor. So I'll keep you posted on how this project goes, but what I'm trying to say is find somebody that's really good at this. Don't try to do it cheap, because cheap just cost this guy $500. But we'll see what we can do with it. Maybe we can save it. Food for thought, everybody. Okay, so I got the base plate off, and you can see here that he broke and welded here, and he broke and welded here. So, remember when I said learn from your mistakes? He torqued down so much on one of the ears that he broke it completely off. So, did that teach him that he shouldn't honk down on the mounting bolts? Nope, he did it again. Some people's kids. Okay, I was able to machine most of the grind marks out of this base plate and get the top half smooth. I still have yet to work on the bottom half. But here's another problem with the master welder. Let me get that on. There you go. See this hole right here? It's got a little notch. And on the secondary side, it's got the same notch. Here's the secondary side on one of the sides he welded. And here it is on the other. Now I said that a carburetor is a very precise piece of delicate equipment. Those notches are there so this thing will idle. How well do you think it was idling with the air bleed closed off from a horrible weld and machine job? Not very well. So I have to figure out a way to open them up to the exact right size, otherwise it'll get more air than it needs and it still won't run right. Here's another goodie from the master welder. He welded this and ground it out with a stone. Didn't bother to take the accelerator pump arm off, so we ground into that too. Just slides off with a little E-clip. Not that terrible big a deal. You can even do it with the carburetor completely assembled. But he chose to grind into other parts. Clearly a master carburetor rebuilder. Okay, now this is the carburetor base to the manifold flange. This is what seals against the manifold. See these dark spots here? And this big dark spot here. Whoops, that big dark spot there. I have started surfacing, and I've gone down a couple thousandths already. And those are the areas that I have not been able to touch yet because they were ground down too far. And even on this side you can see it's light through here because he warped the base plate too. So, you know, vacuum leaks on a carbureted engine are really bad. Vacuum leaks in general are really bad. So it wasn't sealing base plate to carburetor, and it wasn't sealing base plate to manifold. And the idle air passages were blocked, and this big vacuum port was blocked. I think I found the running issue. Okay, I think I got it. All idle ports are now open. That surface area is flat, and this surface area is flat. I have what's called a witness mark right here where my finger is, and it's basically a dimple left in there. I don't have to take it completely out because, as you can see, there won't be any vacuum leaks, and the thousandths, maybe 2/1000 that are left there will get sealed up with a gasket. But for the most part, it is flat. I opened up that vacuum passage, and the base plate appears to be fixed. We just have to be very careful putting it back on because, well, you don't weld carburetors together. Okay, so we finished tearing down the rest of the carburetor, and we looked at all of the tuning adjustments that are on it. And if this guy was running alcohol, it wasn't running very good because the jet sizes are way too small for alcohol, but kind of big for gasoline. So, judging from the amount of carbon and soot in the primaries and the lack thereof in the secondaries, I'm going to go ahead and say that he barely ever got into the secondaries, if at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to knock the jet sizes down probably 2 or 3 sizes in both, maybe 4 or 5 sizes in the secondaries because they were way on the big side. And then now that the base plate is fixed, we will re-clean it and put it all back together, and it should be a pretty decent carburetor. But it's not bad. I was expecting much worse because Mike told me that this carburetor had been sitting for a long time, but it really isn't that bad. It's actually kind of nice. So here is the primary metering block and the secondary metering block, and you'll see that the secondary metering block does not have a power valve because it doesn't need one. Center hung floats and the bowls look really, really good. I just noticed that the floats are not even close to adjusted correctly. The secondaries are too high, primaries are too low. Awesome! So anyway, we will make the necessary adjustments, put it back together. I'm going to throw it on earthquake just to dial it in. It's going to be pretty anemic on earthquake, but you know, it'll give me an idea, and it should make the truck idle, and I can tune it a little bit while it's here, and that way when I give it back, it's perfect. Which is what we want. We don't want comebacks, and we don't want, you know, this carburetor to sit around for 20 more years saying, you know, well, it's a piece of junk. But we will fix this and put it back together on the next episode. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see everybody down the road.